The first round of stimulus checks began depositing into millions of Americans' bank accounts yesterday. But could Washington's coronavirus relief package be incentivizing workers to leave their jobs in order to collect the stipend? My next guest is warning of just that. Joining me right now is South Carolina Senator and Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham. Senator, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So this is just one issue that you and I have spoken about in the past, that people in South Carolina are making more money staying home than they are at work. But there are other issues as well. I want to get your take on first assessing the PPP, this paycheck program from the Small Business Administration. How are things going, Senator?
It's getting better. There are more loans going out the door. It's a good program. The goal of the program is to keep small businesses from going bankrupt because they're having to be shut down to deal with mitigation. Restaurants, bars, gyms, all kind of places are shut down because people can't show up in large numbers. And the forgiveness comes if the employer borrows the money and keeps people on the payroll. The goal of the program, for forgiveness sakes, is to keep people from going on unemployment. Here's the problem. In South Carolina, you're getting $23 an hour to be unemployed. A lot of these businesses pay $15 and $16 an hour to their employees. So there's a tension there that's undercutting the purpose of the program, which is to keep people on the payroll, and we've got to deal with that.
Yes, I know that, and that's one issue, but there's another issue as well, because the whole idea of giving a small business, and this is what I keep railing about, I've been talking about this for a week, this 8-week period where a small business borrows the money, they get the money. In order to get that loan forgiven, they've got to send much of that money out the door and send it to their employee so that the employee stays on the payroll. That's great for the employee, but that's not going to stop the company from going bankrupt, Senator. They're still there with the bills that they need to pay and no revenue coming in. So if the paycheck program could move the timeline, whereas you start the clock ticking on that 8-week period when we're out of a shutdown, I think it would probably be doable for some businesses and keep them alive. Not now, though, not in this 8-week period while they're still shut down.
Well, let's unpack that. That's a really good point. Under the law, 75% of the loan has to be given to pay payroll. Well, a lot of places like New York, the rent and all the business expenses are probably more than 25%. So that 75-25 needs to be revisited. But the goal is to keep the company from going bankrupt, and while they're shut down, for the company to pay the employees so they don't have to go on unemployment. Well, the problem is unemployment pays people more than they actually make, so you're having people not stay on the payroll but draw unemployment benefits, which may make it hard for the employer to get forgiveness if he can't retain 75% of his employees. So the unemployment system is undercutting the SBA loan program.
Exactly. So what do you want to do about that? I mean, I know that there is conversation now about the additional money going into the program because the money is already running out. Look, you've got to, look at the Small Business Administration and recognize that they gave out $23 billion one year, and now they're expected to give out $350 billion in 3 weeks. So I get that. But what kind of changes will we see, Senator?
Right. Okay, number one, I want to look at changing the 75-25 split so that businesses can have more money to pay their business expenses. Number two, I want to make sure that we do not incentivize people to leave the payroll to go into unemployment. The goal of this program is to keep people off the unemployment rolls. The third thing is I want to make sure the money's going to Main Street, not to people who really are well off or taking advantage of the program. I think more of the money should go through community banks. We have about 3,500 banks now that are participating in this program. And what I worry about is pretty solvent businesses seeing an opportunity to get $10 million free from the federal government. So I want to focus on Main Street, the small business, and have more community bank lending instead of the big banks. So that's another thing I worry about.
So are you doing hearings on this? How will you actually move the needle on making these changes? Everything you say, I've heard the same exact thing from small businesses, Senator.
Yeah. Well, one, this has been a good program, but the whole purpose was to keep the business from going bankrupt and having people on a payroll rather than unemployment. The unemployment system was never envisioned to be more generous than staying on the payroll. We got to fix that. We can't do that for 4 more months because we're going to add people to the unemployment rolls. You may have an incentive here in the unemployment benefits taking people out of the workforce larger than the virus itself. We got to make sure the money's going to small businesses, not people who are pretty well off. And we got to change the 75-25 so the person doesn't lose their business. If you don't do those 3 things, this program cannot be to its highest and best use.
Because it didn't start out so smooth, did it?
Well, but, you know, Mnuchin's done a good job. I mean, he did a good job. I mean, we're talking about 20% of the country being unemployed. You can't get through to the unemployment agencies. My state has processed 180,000 unemployment claims. You're having businesses dump their employees into unemployment. They keep paying their health insurance. No system was ever set up to run this way. So this small business program is designed to keep people out of unemployment, and I think is being undercut by the benefit schedule.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this. The Senate adjourned yesterday without either party attempting to pass the stalled coronavirus aid bill for the second time. The meeting lasted approximately 30 seconds, delaying and until at least Thursday. What happened?
Yeah. Well, I think we see the need to put more money into the small business loan program. It's being highly utilized, but I want to make sure that the money's being lent to the people who need it the most. We need to revisit the 75-25 split to make sure people have enough money to pay the bills. And again, we need to reform the unemployment system. I want to put more money into the program. Democrats want to put more money into hospitals and state government coffers. The real emergency is that the small business loan program is running out of money. We should do that first with some reform. But people keep asking me, when is it going to get better? It's never going to go back to normal until we get a vaccine and drug therapies. I think 2020 is going to be a lost summer for tourism purposes. I can't imagine Myrtle Beach receiving much of tourism this summer. I think college football, I hope we can play, but you're going to have a lot of empty stands. So we need to get these programs right because this problem is going to be with us for most of 2020.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw some earnings coming out this morning, Senator. J.P. Morgan, profits plummeting, Wells Fargo, they're all raising money because they're talking about, Jamie Dimon said he's expecting a severe recession that is likely. So you say right off the summer, you maybe just write off all of 2020.
Well, here's what I'm saying. I live in a tourism state. I was on the phone yesterday with a bunch of people on restaurants and bars and golf courses in Myrtle Beach. I do not see June, July, and August being a full summer in terms of tourism. I see this virus coming back in the fall. I think we're doing a good job to be ready for the fall. Drug therapies to take it from a 10 to 1 or 2 are essential. You need a vaccine, but that's probably next year. I see reduced football seasons in terms of people being present at the game. I hope we can play football, but I don't see full stands. And these programs, these loan programs, are vital to keep American small businesses from going bankrupt. The unemployment insurance program is to keep an income stream coming in to people until we can reopen the economy. And both of them need to be looked at. The unemployment system is failing this country.
And on top of that, speaking of your hometown, you've got a devastating tornado tearing through your hometown of Seneca, South Carolina, yesterday morning. You had rescue teams on the ground responding. We send you our good wishes and best regards on that. I mean, can you tell us anything about the impact there?
Yeah, so these alert systems work. So my phone went off about 3:30 the night before last, saying shelter, and I thought a train was coming through the house. It hit a neighborhood right above me very hard. We lost one person in Seneca, but my hometown got hit by an ES3 hurricane, and the person that was killed was a contractor worker at Borg Warner plant, and that plant would have normally been operating on the third shift with 200 people, but because of the coronavirus, it was virtually empty, and so I guess that's a blessing in disguise there.
Oh, God. Senator, I'm so sorry to hear all that. Before you go, is it likely that we will see a fourth relief package at this point, Senator? I mean, look, the last package, you had so many people, your colleagues on the left, trying to jam in other things like funding for Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
You did have to agree to the $25 million to the Kennedy Center. But what is the fourth package going to look like?
Well, President Trump, I think, has done a damn good job of lowering the projected death rate. He's made three big decisions. He closed travel down from China and Europe, right? And he put in place some strong mitigation matters practices in March. Now, for us to reopen the economy, we're going to have a vaccine and therapies to keep people healthy. So what I want in this package is a stimulus package. Telemedicine is really coming online in a big way. I want broadband to rural America so they can really receive telemedicine at its highest and best use. I think there's things in this package that have to be stimulus in the fourth quarter. There is no economy to stimulate right now, but the package has to be forward-looking, and it can't have a bunch of pork in it. It's got to be about rebuilding the country so we can get people back to work, not about your pet project.
Do you want part of it? Do you want something in there that forces companies to move their supply chains out of China and back to the United States?
Absolutely. When you do a deep dive, lessons learned, we can't have 90% of antibiotics made in China. We can't have most of our personal protective equipment outsourced. We got to bring it back into the country. And if we don't punish China, there'll be a fourth pandemic. This is the third pandemic to come from China. These wet markets are pandemic incubators. And if we don't hold China accountable as a world, not just as a nation, you can expect more of this. So we got a lot to do. I hope we can have an election in November where people can actually go up and go to the polls. But the president, in my view, has avoided 2.2 million Americans from dying because he rejected the herd theory. Let it run through the society. We'll build up immunity. Yeah. Thank God he rejected that. Under the best scenario, we were looking at 100 to 240,000 deaths. I think we're going to beat that.
Yep, and thank you for your leadership. Senator, real quick before you go, you said China has to be held accountable. How? What are you going to do?
I would basically punish the hell out of China. We have about $1.3 trillion in Treasury notes they hold where we owe them money. I would start taking some of the money away from China, canceling some of the debt, Marshall Blackburn's bill. Tom Cotton's got legislation to move the supply chain back. But I'd start literally sending China a bill for the 17 million people unemployed and the 23,000 deaths.
All right. We will leave it there. Senator, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The press has not treated these incredible people who've done such a great job. They haven't treated them fairly. Everything we did, I was criticized because I was too early. If I waited longer, it would have been, you would have been criticized. If I went way earlier, if I went 3 months earlier, I would have been criticized, criticized for being way too early. And I don't mind being criticized, but not when they're wrong. Not when people have done a great job. Yes.
See the briefing yesterday? The briefing yesterday basically was an all-out brawl between the press and the president. Had nothing to do with us. Senator Lindsey Graham watched too. He's chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, obviously Republican, South Carolina. Senator, the look back Sunday with the New York Times, picked up by every news organization, pointed all fingers at basically the president for dropping the ball and not acting sooner. The president fought back. Well, where's the truth lie?
Well, number one, Mr. President, the American people understand what you've done for them, and this effort to destroy Trump, no matter the cost to the country, is getting a bit old and is pissing a lot of people off. The president made 4 really important decisions to save American lives. Number one, he shut down travel to China and Europe in a way to keep hundreds of thousands of people from being affected. He declared a national emergency to give the country the tools to fight back. That was a major decision. He rejected the herd mentality of letting it run rampant through the country. People build up immunity. A couple million people would have died if that had been the case. And finally, I think the most important thing the president has done is unleash the private sector in testing and trying to develop drugs by giving FDA waivers for therapies and vaccines to speed up the process. So I think the president has made really hard calls well, and we're going to be well below the 100,000 minimum expected, and it's due to his leadership and the American people working together.
What do you think about that timeline? I've never seen a briefing, and I don't know if you have, where the president put together an entire. Can you hear me, Lindsey? Senator?
Yes.
Can't hear us?
Yes.
You can hear us? So what do you think of that video that he put together? He put together a timeline of him saying in January, travel ban. Then you had people in the media saying, this is ridiculous. He's going too far. You had Biden saying xenophobia. And then it would have another soundbite of President Trump in February. Then another one, and the media criticizing him. And now the media criticizing him for not doing enough. So I thought that was pretty smart on his part. And then he also included sound bites of the governor of New York and governor of California, who are both Democrats, praising him.
Well, number one, we're going to have an election in November, but people are dying right now, and this president is doing everything humanly possible to work with anybody that will work with him. Do you know when impeachment ended? February the 6th, we voted to acquit the president, and Democratic leaders who are criticizing the president now wanted to extend the trial for weeks to call more witnesses. Joe Biden criticized President Trump when he invoked the Chinese travel ban. He's trying to rewrite history, not President Trump. I do believe that the president's biggest decision was stopping travel from China and Europe, declaring a national emergency so we could take the full resources of the federal government and put them into play here, and waiving a lot of rules and regulations so that we can get vaccines and drug therapies hopefully by this fall or late summer. So we'll have an election over all this. But you got to remember, the Democratic Party on February the 6th was asking the Senate to stay in session to get more witnesses. These are the people who are criticizing.
Yeah. No kidding. You know, Senator, after the presidential directive about people stay at home for pretty much the entire month of April, there are now millions of people who are out of work. They're trying to file for unemployment insurance through their states. I was talking to the Kansas State Secretary of Labor, and she and her team explained to me that normally in a week, Kansas might process 1,300 unemployment claims. Now it's 55,000 a week, and they've had to quadruple the call center, and they're trying to get it on the website, but people have been trying for weeks, and they still haven't been able to file for unemployment, and I know that is one of your main concerns.
Yeah, in South Carolina, we had a 4,100% increase in unemployment claims, 85,000 last week. In a normal week, it's about 2,000. Our unemployment system is working pretty well here. We've got major problems like everybody else with the volume, but we've processed 180,000 claims. The small business loan program that you talked about earlier in the show is designed to keep small businesses from going bankrupt while we're in mitigation, and it's designed to keep their employees on the payroll. Here's the problem. The unemployment benefits in South Carolina are $23 an hour to be unemployed. You've got a lot of small businesses trying to keep their people on the payroll, paying $16 and $17 an hour. One program is undercutting the other, and we've got to get that fixed.
You do, and you have to do the ratio between what they do with their money. I just don't understand why you can't go back in there and just fix it. This is like the 10th lawmaker that I've talked to that says they agree, but no one's fixing it. But on another note, you got another reality check last night as the tornado slammed into your hometown of Seneca, South Carolina. How's everybody doing?
Well, we lost one person, Borg Warner, a manufacturing plant, a really good company, got hit hard, and the person got killed was working there at night as a contractor. Normally, they would be running a third shift at that plant with 200 people, and it's just a blessing from God that they were not open because of the coronavirus. It was the ES3 hurricane, At 3:30 in the morning, I thought a train was coming through my house. So my hometown got hit really hard. We lost 9 people in South Carolina to these tornadoes that went all over the state. We'll get through it. The governor's been great, but we got to fix this loan program. I don't mean to change topics, but the 75-25 split needs to change. And there are people applying for this small business loan that really are liquid as they can be, and they're taking advantage of it. The money should be for Main Street, and some people are abusing this system.
Yeah,
you can't keep employees. Yeah, you can't keep employees if they have no owner. People have to remember there has to be an owner and employees, not just employees. I don't know what it takes to get through these people.
All right, Senator. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I think we got to go. We're out of time. We'll talk to you soon, though. Thanks so much, Senator.